Hi everybody. I hope that you're all doing well. For those who have come back up to Boone, I hope that you're settling into your dorms all right and have had a chance to hopefully attend at least a couple of face-to-face classes this week in spite of some cancellations due to the snow. So our topic for week 4 is forest fire. And this is always the topic that catches students' attention right away because forest fires have been in the news so much these past couple of years, most recently the huge wildfires out on the west coast of the United States last fall. So forest fire is a growing challenge. The first time I taught this class in 2016, there were actually widespread forest fires here in western North Carolina. We were walking to class towards the end of the semester and actually smelled the smoke in the air from the forest fires, so that was very dramatic. And here's a picture of one scene from those forest fires in 2016. For the most part, we're not seeing the type of out-of-control wildfires here in western North Carolina that have become such a problem out on the west coast. The forests here tend to stay pretty rainy and pretty moist, and that keeps fires from getting out of control. So let's start off with just a few quick vocabulary words. Some of these may be familiar to you, others not, but you're going to be reading a lot of articles on your own this week, so I just want to give you a little bit of a preview of ideas that you're going to come across. So when we say wildfire, this means a forest fire that was not intentionally set by humans. It starts by accident and often gets out of control really quickly. So the big fires out on the west coast last fall were definitely wildfires. And wildfire season are the months of the year when wildfire usually occurs. A prescribed burn is the opposite of a wildfire. A prescribed burn means that forest experts set a forest fire on purpose in order to maintain a forest as it naturally should be. And we'll talk more about prescribed burns in a moment. The word snag refers to a dead tree that's left standing, for example, after a wildfire. And if a big wildfire sweeps through a whole forest and leaves a lot of dead trees standing, then we call that a snag forest. Clear cutting means cutting down all of the trees in a forest at once. Some forest managers like to do this after a wildfire to cut down that snag forest. You'll be reading for this week, some of you, whether that's considered to be a good practice. Then, again, basic review. Forest canopy means the upper parts of the taller trees, so the part of the forest that's closest to the sky and getting the most sun. And of course, the canopy shades what's below it, and what's below it is called the forest understory. And the understory includes shrubs, small trees, saplings, smaller plants that grow close to the ground. When we say fuel load, this is a really important term right now, and that means the quantity of flammable material that's present in a location on the forest floor. So basically, debris from dead plants, smaller plants that may be growing crowded together, anything that could get a fire going and make it burn really hot, make it burn really long, those are the fuel loads. So before we come back to the out-of-control wildfires, let's start by acknowledging that fire is often good for forests in natural settings. And for certain types of forests that are fire adapted, forest is even necessary and important. So fires, of course, have always started naturally by lightning. That's the case in the Southeast. For thousands of years, Native Americans used controlled fire to shape their environment. Over the course of the 20th century, however, in the United States, many forest managers decided that fire in general was a bad thing for forests and that it should always or usually be suppressed. So over the course of the 20th century, there was a lot of fire suppression in national forests, for example, national parks. And this led to some problems over the long term. Even though the policies were well-intentioned, it ended up causing problems. Basically problems with the buildup of fuel loads on the forest floors, that sometimes became excessive and are now serving as fuel for out-of-control wildfires. So more and more people in forest management are recognizing the importance of what's called prescribed burns to set smaller fires in forests that are adapted to fire in order to keep those forests healthy and to prevent larger fires in the future. So prescribed burn is like a smaller fire set on purpose that prevents a larger fire by accident down the road. So how does fire benefit forests ecologically, whether it's natural fire or prescribed burns? So smaller fires clear out debris and crowded understory plants, preventing larger fires. Fire clears open space for species that thrive in sun, in snags, and around forest edges. Fire returns nutrients to the soil. When wood and leaves become ash, that can return nutrients to the ground. Forests where fire occur regularly are home to fire-tolerant plant species, and those species obviously have an advantage where fire occurs regularly. For example, some species only release their seeds in the heat of a fire. Here's an example of a tree that grows pretty close to here, the Table Mountain pine. As the name suggests, it's a mountain species. It often grows on rocky ridges that naturally receive a lot of lightning, and that lightning has always started a certain number of fires and led to the development of plant communities that are fire tolerant. So here's a close-up of the cone of Table Mountain pine, and what's special about it for us today is that it has resin that holds the cone closed under normal circumstances. But when there's a fire, the heat of the fire melts that resin or softens it, and that allows the cone to open up and release its seeds. So it's in a fire that that cone will release the seeds. And the fire also helps to burn away excess material on the ground that might keep that seed from really getting into the ground and being able to germinate. So a fire has all kinds of benefits for these Table Mountain pines. Example of another really important southeastern species. This one is not a mountain species, but some of you who are from other parts of the states may know the longleaf pine. Longleaf pine was a very common species across the whole southeast. We'll talk about it more in our history unit. A lot of damage has been done to it over the years, but people are trying to restore longleaf pine forests today. So the longleaf pine is fire tolerant. It has thick bark, like many fire-tolerant species, that help it to withstand the heat of a fire and survive fire. And as you can see, when fire burns, it keeps the understory very open. So that's the characteristic look of the longleaf pine forest. And as long as there's regular fires occurring, that gives the longleaf pine species an advantage over species that aren't fire tolerant. But if fire is suppressed, then the non-fire tolerant species get the upper hand, they get the advantage, and gradually the longleaf pine ecosystem would go away. So prescribed burns are a regular part of forest management for longleaf pine forests. And this is our tree of the week. So I've posted an extra link about longleaf pine forests, a short but information-packed web article about the species in general with just a very short video about how the prescribed burns are done. I really recommend it. It's very interesting. Okay, so now coming back to the more destructive wildfires. We looked at the Amazon last week in week 2 and talked about deforestation in the Amazon, some of which is caused by fire. 2019, the fall, fires in the Amazon were in the news a lot and were very destructive that year. Here's a map where the little red dots show you fire locations inside the Amazon and also in other places too. The green area on this map is the Amazon. So as we've said last week, farmers and big agribusinesses often use fire as a way to clear forests to plant their agricultural fields. But quite often those fires get out of control, they spread deeper into the rainforest, cause deforestation. And, you know, it used to be that rainforests that had so much rain and so much moisture weren't really likely to catch fire in a big way, but we are seeing more fire today worldwide in forests that traditionally were much moister. So this time last year, the big fire in the news, which was very sad, were these huge fires in Australia. Lots of pictures of Australian wildlife getting trapped by the fires. 2019-2020 was Australia's worst wildfire season on record. Parts of Australia are naturally dry and fire prone, but climate change seems to be making fires increasingly destructive in Australia as in other parts of the world. So a lot of attention was given especially to Australia's endemic animal species. Endemic means that a species is naturally found only in that one place and not in other places. So if a species gets wiped out in that location because it's endemic to there, it might not exist anywhere else, and so it can go extinct. And islands, or Australia is kind of an island, but it's a continent also. But in any case, being surrounded by water like an island. Islands often have a lot of endemic species, and the reason for that is that over time, over long evolutionary time, because it's more difficult for animals to get on and off the island on account of the water, a lot of very unique species have time to evolve and develop on an island. So Australia has a lot of endemic species, as do many islands. Okay, so I don't want to say any more because a lot of this week is going to be you teaching each other through presentations. So here are some of the questions that you'll be addressing this week. Is human-caused climate change making global wildfires worse? Has human suppression of natural forest fires made wildfire worse? What are the pros and cons of using prescribed burns to prevent extreme wildfires? After wildfires, should humans help to restore forests or let them regrow naturally? What are the challenges of controlling megafires? How do phenomena such as fire tornadoes increase a fire's destructiveness? So the way it's going to work in week 4, it's all spelled out on your checklist. It's going to be a little bit different from the other weeks. Basically, your assignment 4 and your group interaction are the same thing. So everybody's going to watch a video called Firefighters Battle the Infernos of Climate Change. Everybody's going to read an article by an author named Jones called Stark Evidence. But then after you've done those two things as general introduction, each person in the small group is going to read a different article, and then you'll be responsible for presenting that article to the rest of your small group. And I've given the article assignments at the bottom of the checklist, and I'll also put it on assignment 4. So there's 4 students per article for 6 articles, and you'll see your name next to the article that you need to read, and the links to all the individual articles are on As You Learn. So first you'll read the article, and then once you've read it, you'll prepare a slide presentation of 3 to 3.5 minutes. And you can use PowerPoint, you can use Google Slides, whatever slide format you like the best. And I'm asking you to upload those to Flipgrid. I find that Flipgrid works just fine for slide presentations. If you haven't shared your screen on Flipgrid before, I posted instructions for that on As You Learn under the online tools topic. So I don't want to say too much more because I've given you detailed instructions on the checklist, but you'll prepare your 3-minute slideshow, put it up on Flipgrid. If you want to just have your voice talking and not your face, that's fine. If you want to show your face, that's also fine. It's up to you whether you choose to show your face. And then that should be up by Thursday night. And I'm giving you this week until Sunday to respond to each other, because sometimes it takes a little bit longer when you're working with videos and not just written text. So by Sunday at 6 p.m., please post responses to everyone else in your small group about their presentations. And then for assignment 4, which is worth 25 points, all you have to do is take the slides from your Flipgrid presentation and upload those slides to As You Learn, and I'll give you the points for the presentation. So the assignment and the presentation for your group is the same thing. Okay, and so from this point on, you are each other's teachers. Each of you in your group becomes the expert on the article that's your article, and you won't have time to go into every detail of the article in your 3-minute presentation. So just focus on the main points, focus on the central questions. I encourage you to cut and paste photos and illustrations from the article straight into your slideshow, because that's an effective way to get a lot of information across quickly. And then, just think, if you wanted to inspire other people in your group to go off and read the article on your own, like what are some of the most fascinating things about the article that you would want to share that would make them want to read it? Okay, so, I very much enjoyed reading through your discussions from week 2, which I've graded at this point, and I enjoyed reading your assignments from week 2. I'm looking forward to looking at your work from week 3 over the next couple days here, and you'll be getting going on week 4. I'm recording this on Friday, so you'll do that next week. Okay, so good luck with it, and let me know if you have any questions, and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.